everybody, this is Robin with Creative2xmom. In today's video, we're going to be talking about books, media, music, and its influence on our kids. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Robin and this is Creative2xmom. This channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. Today's video is going to be in line with parenting, a little bit of homeschooling, as we talk about how media, and specifically books, affects our kids, whether for the good or for the bad, and what we can do about it. Now, you guys know we are a big reading family. In fact, I just finished filming our wrap-up of reads for October. I will link that video down below. And as homeschoolers, a lot of times we end up raising readers. I know that that holds true in my home. Now, in full disclosure, I have 3 kids, one of which is absolutely not a reader, and it is like pulling teeth to get him to read anything. But typically, we end up with readers in our homes because we are surrounded by books, especially if you are leaning toward that Charlotte Mason philosophy where you're using real living books. It tends to, the more the kids consume, the more they want. It creates a good appetite for good books. But this can also be a little bit of a burden on mom and dad because there are so many books out there. I have wandered through the library and found just an amazing amount of books that I want to read, and it boggles my mind when I walk into the children's section because I'm finding that in the young adult section especially, you either have books like Anne of Green Gables or Black Beauty or a lot of the classics that are challenging in their vocabulary and in their concepts, and then you can contrast them to a lot of just trash. There's a lot of trash that's being produced out there. Now, I'm not saying that every classic is worth your time, and I'm not saying that every new title is not worth your time, but we really can start to see a difference over the past probably 10 years, I feel like. And I have to be careful as a mom to sort of vet some of those titles. And a lot of people will say, well, man, that's a lot of work. Like, why do you do that? Why do you pre-read things like The Good Master? Why do you find family read alouds like The Mouse with the Question Mark Tail? Why do you feel the need to check into what your children are reading? And it's a very simple answer. It's because there are messages being sent to our kids all the time, whether consciously or unconsciously by that author. That author is conveying how they feel about life, how they feel about people, how they feel about circumstances. Their philosophy is going to come through in their writing, whether they're doing it intentionally or whether they're just crafting a story and their own worldview is coming out. So I think as homeschoolers, a lot of times we pull our kids from the mainstream system because we want to shape how they see the world. We want to pass on our values. We want to pass on how you treat others, what the world is like, how you kind of put everything through this lens. Just as the author is seeing everything through a lens, our children are seeing everything through a lens. And there can be very, very conflicting viewpoints in the world right now. There has been for the past 100 years, I feel like. I don't think this is a new issue for us today. This is how we're handling it and why we're handling it this way. Because as I'm telling my kids and I'm passing on my values, as I'm passing on how I want them to treat others, as I'm passing on how I want their character to develop, I want them to be children of integrity, I want them to be men and women of their word, I want them to be men and women who love others, who engage politely in conversation, who value others. I don't need anything combating that. And a lot of times we'll see that in movies, and we'll be very careful about movies. A lot of times we will see that in social media, and we'll be very careful about how we allow our children to engage in social media. But then, as homeschoolers, we have books, and we're like, oh yes, read, please be reading. My child is just reading, I'm just happy that they're reading. But we don't always think about the values and the worldview that is being conveyed in what they read. There is such a power of influence in all of this. One example I think that I try to be really aware of is how family relationships are portrayed in books. Are parents portrayed as dumb, out of touch, stupid, ignorant, or is there a very... I'm not saying that every family has to be a mother, father, children, but at least the family members that are in the books, are they treated with respect? Are they full of wisdom? Are they trying to raise their kids with wisdom? Or are they just out of touch? How do we want our kids to see us? How do I want to be treated? And what examples am I putting forth in that? I feel like good family relationships in books is very important, of how my kids treat people, treat their elders. It's going to be reflected in what, from what they read, is going to be reflected in real life and how they treat their elders. I look at how do the books handle violence. There are a lot of horrific things that have happened in our history, and I'm not holding my kids back from all of that, but I am trying to do it in an age-appropriate manner. I think about things like The Diary of Anne Frank, The Hiding Place. There is some rough realities in titles like this, and I don't want to hold them back from my kids, but I'm also not going to hand off The Hiding Place to my 4th grader, simply because they are just not in a place to emotionally handle that and to know what to do with it. Their imaginations work overtime when they're reading, and so it creates these images and these thoughts in their brains that I have to be really careful and help guard them and how they're going to steward that. So there's really kind of 3 questions that I'm asking myself as I pre-read or as I look into books. Sometimes I don't read the entire thing. I might read a chapter at the beginning, maybe middle, end, get some good ideas, get some feedback from other parents, but I'm really looking for 3 things. I'm looking for the family values that are taught. Are we teaching our kids to be sneaky, or are we teaching them to live with integrity? I'm looking at what do I want to teach my children about life? What do I want to teach my children about the value of humans, or their place in the world? How do I want them to see themselves after this book? And then the 3rd thing is, how do I want them to behave? Do the characters in this book either behave how I want them to, or do they grow to a place of behaving how I would want my children to behave? How am I shaping who they are through this powerful influence? I think these are all good questions for us to ask as parents, whether you're homeschooling your kids or not. What is shaping my kids' worlds? And especially in homeschool, books are a powerful, powerful influence in our kids' lives, because a lot of times they spend a lot of time reading. And so who are these role models in these books? Are they modeling values that we want as a family? Are they modeling attitudes that we want as a family? Are they creating and portraying things that my kids are ready for socially, emotionally? Are these situations that they can handle, or are these situations that need to be held off for just a little while? Because the imagination, especially, I'm learning, is so powerful in our children and can cause them to wrestle with things that they're just not ready for. So there are some titles that I have had to just say, okay, we're not reading this anymore. I know that you're reading. I love that you're reading. I appreciate the vocabulary maybe even that you're getting out of this book. I appreciate that it's expanding your imagination, but I do not appreciate what it's portraying and who these people are, who these characters are. Books especially can be that sort of sneaky influence that we don't always think about. I know it was for me. I was always monitoring what sort of movies they were watching or what sort of music they were listening to, and I wasn't always conscious of what was happening in what they were reading. There's a couple of good places that you can find great book lists. Of course, this will vary from family to family. I'm not saying that my standards have to be your standards, but I am saying please be aware there is a heavy influence on our kids, especially today. I have going to the library once a week. I see it. I see the heavy influence that's coming down. I see a lot of things that we don't agree with, and that's fine. If that works for your family, that's fine. That's just not the type of kids that I want to raise, and I've had to be very conscious of what I'm allowing them to consume and fill their thought life. We're told to take every thought captive, and I think that is such a powerful thing, that the thoughts that come into our mind can really create how we perceive the world. And I'm putting up and working on putting up safety guards for my kids as they grow, and then slowly releasing that funnel and allowing them to be exposed to some different things that we can talk about and find out what their values really are. What values are they starting to hold deeper and deeper? But until that time, I am being very careful about what I allow in our home. Leave me your thoughts down below. Have you thought about this? The power of influence, the power of reading on your kids, and really what our children are reading today. And please leave me some good titles. I have a 6th grader and a 9th grader, so I would love to know what you are finding. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.